On today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, the stars at night are big and bright, especially Jakub Dobes.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1226 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your shows. Doing that supports us and ensures you will not miss an episode. While we're at it, throw a like on the video if you're on YouTube, share it with your friends, post it on your social media of choice. We are not asking you for your money. We are asking you for your time and your support. So thank you for any support you can throw our way. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sIan, and I'm joined by the incomparable Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, Canadians just keep on winning, huh?
They keep on winning, sometimes even when they don't deserve to. And that's fine because, sometimes you have to be good and sometimes you have to be lucky. And there's always like the old adage that says good teams make their own luck. In this case, Jakub Dobes made the Canadiens luck.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. Last I checked, goalies are part of hockey teams, and you are allowed to win if you have a good goalie, regardless of what people may tell you. That's true. You can win with a good goalie. So we'll get into that in this one. Obviously, Jakub Dobes, the big story coming out of Dallas on what day is it? Thursday night? Thursday night.
It's been a long week, you guys.
And
I almost brought out the Udi, but we're not quite there yet.
No, we're feeling good after that one. And then it's Friday for you guys. It's Friday, and we've got our mailbag. Some questions about salary structure, some deferred salary contracts are being signed. So we'll talk about maybe the potential of Montreal getting in there. And we have to keep talking about call-up options because as Montreal comes home, it seems like some kind of call-up from Laval may be imminent. So we look into some of the options going on in Laval at the moment. But we have to start on Thursday night. Montreal goes into Dallas, a team they played 5 days ago and valiantly lost in a shootout. The skills competition. It always stinks when a game ends that way. And this one looked like it was headed in the same direction until Alex Newhook wins a draw late in the third period back to Lane Hutson, who just flicks it at the net. It goes through, 6 bodies on its way to the net, hits Alex Newhook's stick, goes in, and Montreal ends up escaping with a victory in Dallas. Obviously, the story is Jakub Dobes, 32-33. He was, after the first period, I will say the only reason the Canadiens won that hockey game. Is that a fair assessment of what happened in Dallas?
I think so. And I think it's important too to note the Canadiens did struggle a little bit in the game against Dallas last time too. That was the second night of the back-to-back. We do have to talk about this. But I think it's really telling in that in these two games they had a rough time. So it's something worth looking at for the front office and for the coaching staff to be like, what is it about Dallas that the Canadiens had trouble with, right? Because largely, I know, Emil Heineman was there last time, but largely the composition of the roster is the same. The goalie, right, was different. But at the same time, for me, what I'm looking at is what is it about this team that Montreal is having fits with? And then that's what you resolve, whether it's through practice, whether it's through the next time, you bring somebody up or you call somebody up or you make a trade or whatever. Like that's something to keep an eye out for. And there is a message in that. But again, it's not to dampen. It's just to say that this is a team that's still growing. And it's a perfect example of one of the growing pains. And you said it. So I'm going to let you, before we started recording, you were talking about Jakub Dobes and how he carried himself. So I want to let you take that away because for me, like that was really, truly the story.
Yeah, it just seems like this kid can't be bothered to be bothered. A lot of rookies, especially like bringing a rookie goalie into the NHL is a really hard thing to do.
It's a risk.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's such a risk that Montreal was clinging on to Caden Primo for as long as they could, trying to give him every opportunity they could. Well, I guess not every opportunity they could because he played like once a month, but trying to do anything they could to not call up one of their young goalies like Jakub Dobes. And I think Montreal probably the front office probably looks back on that and wonders, how many more wins could we have possibly stolen had we had been playing him instead of Caden Primo at this point? That's all water under the bridge. The choices that they were making at the time made sense. Right. The Canadiens needed a change, and they got it. Jakub Dobes was that change, and he's been excellent every game. He's not lost yet in the NHL. He's not lost an NHL game yet.
Is he the greatest goalie of all time? Who can say?
I will say, Lane Hutson has been playing some of his best hockey in January, but
Incredible.
he was also the rookie of the month in December. And I was thinking up until like midway through the third period tonight, I was like, well, Lane Hutson's going to walk his way to another rookie of the month. And then in the back of my mind, I thought, well, what if Jakub Dobes keeps playing? Do they do 3 rookie stars of the month? Can we have 2 of them? Because it's like a 1A, 1B at this point. It might as well be.
Yeah. I think it's such a joyful time to be a Canadiens fan because just having that, like it's been a while since you knew that you had your chance in net when there was a backup goaltender. I mean, there were points in the last couple of years when it was your starting goaltender and you didn't have confidence that they were doing. So
No kidding.
it's just so much fun to watch. And I really do want to talk about Lane Hutson too, because he is phenomenal. Arpan Basu just tweeted that he has 1 goal and 9 assists in the last 6 games.
Yeah, on that point streak. It's bonkers. The way that he's been playing has been unbelievable. One other player I wanted to talk about in this one, he scored the empty net goal. It was his 100th NHL goal. Yoel Armia, who I thought throughout the game and over the last little stretch, especially, over the last 2 games where they haven't had a full complement on that fourth line, I thought he's played some of the best hockey we've seen him play in a while because it just seemed he's an animal going after the puck.
Yeah.
He uses his frame to protect the puck better than I think anybody else on this team. He's so strong on his stick. You cannot take the puck away from him. He's the perfect fourth line player. It stinks he makes $3.4 million. And I think that you could say that about essentially every player in the bottom 6 except for like Jake Evans. Everyone else is making too much money, and it doesn't matter because they're playing well.
Yeah.
But part of me was thinking, I think we're past the point right now where the Canadiens are an automatic seller. They might end up selling if they fall out of the race later on, but right now that's not really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When do we start to have the conversation of maybe keeping Armia past this year? Almost all of their penalty kill is an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
You can't go into the next season with that, right? I wonder how long it is before we start to have that talk about Yoel Armia not coming back at the same salary, at the same contract. It's probably a very diminished one.
Though. You could. If the cap is going up by $9 million, and just yesterday, Ian, you were telling me percentages.
Yeah.
Percentage-wise, it'll make sense.
Yeah, you could. I wonder
you just
though.
Can't give him a raise.
No, he cannot get a raise. That can't be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
But you do have to, while the cap is going up, I think you can allow yourself 1 or 2 of those contracts. You can't just start giving all those away. Like if you're going to keep Jake Evans, maybe Armia would have to take a pay cut to come back. Yeah. That's sort of my mentality. Like everyone's like, no, every contract needs to be completely perfect. We need to fleece every player that signs here. And that's not the reality of it. You just can't hand out Carl Alsner contracts all the time because those are the ones that get you. It's not these. Anything else that stood out to you in this one against Dallas?
Not really, but I do want to really quickly say about Armia, like this is a man at a contract year. So you do have to factor that in. He is playing some of his best hockey of his life right now. And that's true. I think that's valid. We've watched him this whole time. But he's also in a contract year. And for him, he's either playing to get on a Stanley Cup potential team, or he's playing to get another contract, or he's also just playing to stay on this team where the vibes are now insane, right? Like it's like, so for me, like I'm just a little bit worried about paying him too much. When I said you could, I'm not advocating for that. I'm saying it's a possibility that is on the table that Kent Hughes can think about. But I think you're very right in that they do have to start thinking about next year's penalty kill and the bottom 6. And the fact is that some of these guys won't be there, right? Like we get a mailbag question once a week about Christian Dvorak staying here. Not at that money. No. That's not happening, right? No. Because there's also other players waiting in the wings to get there, to be part of this bottom 6 that we have to see. So for me, like that game, honestly, like I think the Canadiens did an admirable job of like surviving that. And I think Jakub Dobes really, really had a lot to do with it. And I think they do need to take lessons from it. And that, again, it's not to say that it's not fun to win. It's not to say that it's not great to win. It's not to say that he didn't do a great job. But the Canadiens do need to like look at stuff like this a little bit more closely, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, you're not going to win every game by winning the deserve to win-o-meter, right?
Right.
You're not. It's not going to happen. The fact that the Canadiens can find a way to win games like this is a testament not only to their goaltending, but I mean, they've played Dallas, one of the better teams in the league, twice over the last 5 days. They've given up 2 goals in regulation. I mean, the other was a shootout goal, right?
Right.
That's very impressive. That's the type of win we're having now. It's not like a 6-4 win, right? We can eke out a 2-1, 3-1 win, on the road in a Stanley Cup contenders barn. That's really important to the development of this team. I know people, over the last few years that the pro tank crowd has said that there's no value in those kinds of wins. Maybe there wasn't then. There is now. It's incredibly valuable for them to understand that they can win games 2-1, 3-1 with an empty netter. They can squeak those wins out even when they're not their sharpest.
Right. They can find a way to make it work by not falling apart and by playing really hard for each other. And a lot of times there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep. Find a way, right? That's all that really matters. All right. We'll leave this game for now and we will head into our mailbag where we will talk about the potential of deferred salary contracts being in the Montreal Canadiens' future, and we'll get into that in just a minute. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. With the playoff field locked and already underway, it's time to start thinking about who can win it all this year. Maybe you like the Chiefs to three-peat at plus 350, or now that my Chargers are out, maybe the Texans can go all the way to at plus 5,000. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoffs this season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we are back. And Laura, we are back with our weekly mailbag. It's always been one of my favorite segments that we do because we get to interact with you guys on a more personal way. We do this mailbag just about every Friday. I would say 99% of Fridays. So if you have questions, you know where to send them to us. Find us on Blue Sky at maybe it's Ian at the Active Stick. You can send them to us directly. You can send us to us at Locked On Canadiens at Blue Sky, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. Anywhere where you can find us, we are monitoring an inbox. So send us your questions if you have them. We're
not monitoring Twitter though.
Yes, correct. We are not monitoring Twitter anymore. So do not, if you have a question, find another way to get it to us. All right, let's jump into this one. This is from Max Laxer, who says, hi, hey, Laura and Ian, I've got a mailbag question for you guys. With the recent Frank Vatrano extension, there's been a lot of discussion about deferred salary contracts. As an alternative, could a player sign a contract with a low cap hit and with a clause that the team will offer them a job with front office or a coaching development staff upon their retirement, or sign this deal as an entirely separate agreement? I think it could be an interesting way to keep players, especially veterans, on expiring contracts while keeping their cap hit low. If this is allowed, then who on the Habs roster would you like to see take a temporary discount and then join the organization off ice later down the line? I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'm going to pop the bubble first that I do not think that is allowed under the CBA. I do not think you can do that. However, it's a fun idea, and I want to tackle this in 2 segments. First, deferred salary contracts. They've been allowed under the CBA for some time. And then I think it was the Seth Jarvis contract in Carolina was the first one that had deferred money on it. And now Frank Vatrano has it. It's starting to become a little bit more of a talk, especially as in baseball. And Kent Hughes even mentioned it. Shohei Ohtani's deal with the Dodgers, like most of it is deferred money to an insane degree because he doesn't need it now. He's Shohei Ohtani. He's signing all these endorsement deals. The problem is, though, is you have to have a player who wants to sign it, right? Like,
right.
Do you have an argument for why a player would want to sign a deferred money contract?
So for me, it's honestly like the player has to really be set up now, just like you said, somebody who's got a lot of endorsements, right? Somebody like, and it's really like in this market, it's Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield right now. That's pretty much it, right? Like they're the ones, Brendan Gallagher once in a while. They're the ones you're seeing though in the ads, with the partnerships, all of that kind of stuff. So for me, I think it's worthwhile if you're okay now, but I think if you're a player on an entry-level contract and let's say you have the potential of Elaine Hudson, say, or something like that, or an Ivan Demidov, like you are a superstar, you want to be making superstar money right away. I don't see it as something that's attractive. I like that it's allowed. I don't see it as something that's attractive though, except for players like you said, like whatever an NHL equivalent of a Shohei Ohtani is. And again, that was a record-breaking contract, so that's it was historic. It's just I just don't see an incentive, but the reason that it's there obviously is that someone thought of it.
Yeah, I think it's more attractive for, a player.
Who's closer to retirement?
Yeah, I was gonna say like before Sidney Crosby signed his last contract with the Penguins, that it would have made sense for him to potentially go into a 2-year contract with a team, take a low cap hit, but defer even more salary past the point where you'll be playing. That makes a lot of sense to me. But this idea that like a guy like Jake Evans would do that, it's not happening. He can cash in now. These guys don't have a lot of opportunities to cash in big, especially when you're a player like a Jake Evans and not a Sidney Crosby. So like that's the argument for it. Let's get to the second part of this question about which Canadiens player would you like to see join the staff at some point after they're done. Yeah, it seems like an easy one, right?
Yeah.
What would he do? What are you having Nick Suzuki do?
He has a lot of brains, so it would be something like coaching, but he's also a huge nerd. Like he'll like be like, okay, let me like, take some classes and then become the capologist or something. I don't know. But it like to me, it feels like player development or coaching is something that he'd be good at. And looking up and down this lineup, like there are guys that like to be here that are happy here. David Savard is
that was a guy I was gonna say.
Yeah.
He seems like he'd be a great vibes guy for the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like a Paul Byron guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
People love him. He can be like an auxiliary defense coach or whatever it is. He's someone that I think people would like to keep around.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, next one. We're going back to Jakub Dobes. You just can't get enough airtime on this show. He's the new Mike Matheson. Now we have to reset the counter. Rye of Wolf on Blue Sky. Possible mailbag question. It is a definite mailbag question now. Thank you, Rye. Dobes is 4-0 and against really strong teams. 3 of them have won Stanley Cups in the last 6 years. Do you think it's time for Marty St. Louis to reward Dobes and give the fans and him a home start against our oldest rivals, the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I think it's time for a home start. I just don't know that I'm doing it against Toronto.
Yes. I'm also doing it. Yeah, I'm doing that against the Rangers on Sunday because I believe the Rangers are also coming off of a back-to-back with travel. You can get Dobes a home start and a kind of better opportunity. It's kind of tough to say it's a better opportunity when the rest of his team in front of him is playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. Schedule's so stupid. I cannot get over the last stretch of games that they've played and how absolutely bonkers it is that they've just played this many games. So yeah, I think he'll get a home start. I think if he's up to the moment, which I think he will be, that crowd's gonna love him. It's gonna be really, really fun to see.
Yeah. It's gonna I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But you know what, Toronto, you have to give it to Sam Montembeault. You have to give Saturday night to Sam Montembeault. And then you know what, a couple of weeks from now, maybe we're having a different conversation, but it is long past due for a home start.
Yeah. All right, let's do Peter on Blue Sky. Slav is very inconsistent. It was evident against Utah in the way that he floated in the first period, and in the second started taking the body down low in the offensive zone after Savard ripped into the forwards at the end of the first. Is he injured or just too cocky now with the $7.5 million per year? I think this question is a symptom of a problem that we're all really, really hard on this kid. And I know that we act like he has the mental fortitude and the attitude to get through that because I think he does. We're not blowing smoke there. I think that's a reality for him. But he's on pace for an increase in points, I believe, year over year. Yeah, to me, this is kind of his sophomore season. And I know he played another season before last one. Like this is the 3rd year of his entry level deal, but he didn't play much in that one. And he barely played because things were miserable and he was having a really tough time adjusting. And I think if he hadn't gotten hurt, they would have sent him to Laval the next day. But I just think we all got to kind of cool it. He's playing on the first line. I thought, especially against Dallas, I thought he had a great night with that line while the team was performing in front of Dobes. Scored a goal on an empty net tap in, which, by the way, Cole Caulfield. Oh my God. That was one of the greatest goals I've seen, and he didn't even score it. That was one of the best plays he's ever had. But anyway, your thoughts on Juraj Slafkovsky before we hit the break here. Am I off base? Is that
No,
is that how you feel?
I do agree with you. I agree with you here. I don't think he floated that much against Utah because I think what's happening now is that whenever we see that Slafkovsky is not scoring or assisting, we're expecting him to be murdering people, right? Throwing the body everywhere. I didn't see that. Like he seemed quiet, but I didn't see that he was floating, right? It's like we've got these two expectations and then nothing in between is acceptable for us, right? Because whenever we see he's not scoring, we're like, yes, but he was playing the body. Whenever we see that he was playing the body and it's like, that's great, right? Or if he's not playing the body, yes, but like look at the 2 assists he had that night, right? So we, like you said, we got to cool it. Like we have to cut this kid some slack. I didn't see it as floating. I would agree that there is inconsistency in his game, but like you said, it's his sophomore season. To me, this is normal growing pains inconsistency. I think it's fine. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, and he's 20.
Yeah,
I think people keep forgetting that when they celebrated New Year's Eve in Vegas, he could not drink. I think we kind of need to. And yes, Lane Hutson's also 20, but the fact that Lane Hutson is playing like the way he is what makes that story special. Yeah. He shouldn't be. There's no reason he should be playing as well as he is. Yeah. But he is a special player. Slafkovsky's going to get there. I have no qualms about that. The way that he sees the game, his vision is really, really great. He has the hands. He has the will to do it. It's just sometimes the game gets too fast for him and he falls behind and it's tough to dig yourself out of that. So I think we got to kind of cool it. I'll pull a Carey Price in the preseason and say, everybody got to chill out a little bit. He'll be all right. I just have
one more thing to say about that.
Yeah.
The front office and the coaching staff too seems to be very well aware and have their eyes open, right? Like they give him the praise when it's due. Like they staple him to the bench when they have to. They have those conversations in the office when they have to, but then when he does well, they do praise him. They do encourage him. They do move him up the lineup. They do give him more ice time. So they're handling it correctly. They're taking each moment or each phase as it comes and responding accurately or correctly to it or productively. I think productively is the best way to put that. So I'm not worried. I think it's good.
Yep. No, I agree. All right. We'll head into our final segment of the week here with a little bit more of our mailbag and talk about some call-up options that Montreal may have at their disposal from Laval. And we'll get into that in just a minute. All right, Laura, we are back. First, I want to get to a question from one of the Roberts brothers. And Jordan, this is from Jordan Roberts. And Jordan, I'm afraid I have to shame you here. And this is unfortunate that I have to do this. Scott is no longer a host on this show. So you address this to Laura and Scott. It's fine. Laura calls me Scott sometimes. It's going to happen. I have a twin brother. I'm used to not being called my name. But I saw Laura and Scott. I thought I was looking at somebody else's mail. We often refer to Kent Hughes as the chef who's quietly cooking deals in the background and always have a hard time knowing his next move. With that being said, what is your current read on the general manager? Is he browsing Pinterest recipes, making his grocery list, or has he had something on low in the smoker this whole time? What are your thoughts? What's Kent Hughes up to?
Kent Hughes is the kind of guy who's had something like hidden in the smoker and it's slowly cooking. Right? Yeah. And then he's gonna surprise everybody with a big splash. Like that's where I'm at right now. Also, Roberts brothers, keep an eye out. There may be a possibility that you might get to meet all the hosts of this show.
Wow, we're coming out of the screen or out of the ears and into real life. It's crazy that we exist beyond these rectangles. Yeah, I think the Carrier trade is kind of an example of that because that's a player they wanted for a long time, right? They did not give up. And I was listening to, I think it was the Steve Tangle podcast. They were talking about how Barry Trotz just isn't good at this in Nashville. And if you are a smart general manager, you should be calling Barry Trotz several times a day. And that is correct. He does not seem to have a grasp of what's going on in Nashville or how the mix that he's made has not worked at all. So every team should be calling Nashville. I mean, they've basically given Ryan O'Reilly a trade protection, even though he does not have any. They're basically saying we're not going to trade him because it might hurt his feelings. That team is so cooked, so beyond cooked. They gave out all this money to these bad teams, and now they just don't know what to do. Anyway, this isn't Locked On Preds. I'm sure they're not having a great time. You can go listen to them. All right,
they are awesome, by the way. They don't deserve this. Also, Before we get to Claude Sauvé, speaking of Alexandre Carrier, we had a
Beautiful.
reminder, a request from our good friend Jay Foster of Locked On Blue Jackets because we have not adequately addressed his hotness on the show. And he says, "Do the people know about this, Laura? Have you discussed this on the podcast? The people need to know." And yes, we need to talk a little bit about this, guys. Alex Carrier is really, really, really handsome. I know once in a while I've kind of alluded to it, but in case you're not like watching Canadiens games, this is an incentive for you to do that.
Yeah.
And so that our request, Jay, I hope I covered it adequately for you.
Jay is correct. Alex Carrier is a very handsome man. TSN does him no favors. And the reason I will say that is when they have like the portrait photos of the players that they do from like the shoulder blades up.
Yeah.
The one that they use of him, they very clearly took his head off of his Nashville photo and put it on Justin Barron's photo because the neck is very long. And love Justin Barron. That's a good looking kid too. But he had a long neck. You can tell. They're like, well, they were traded for each other. We'll just throw Carrier's head onto Barron's body and call it, Frankenbaron. It's wild. It's wild that they did that. Why haven't they taken a picture of this man yet? Anyway, that's my gripe of watching the TSN broadcast. All right,
but now the people know he's a handsome man.
Yeah, and they will know from now on.
Yes.
Claude Sauvé, hi guys. I would love to know your call-up picks by what they will do and what they should do and what you want them to do. Claude's picks are they will call up Raphael Harvey-Pinard, they should call up Lucas Candata, and he wants Simoneau. I'd like Simoneau driving Reeves and his ilk crazy like Gallagher used to do with Chara. I like that list a lot. What are your thoughts?
I don't disagree on the idea of Simoneau driving Toronto crazy. For me, it's what they will do. Probably RHP. What they should do is Lucas Candata. Actually, they might select Lucas Candata, but what I want is Davidson.
Yeah. I was about to jump to and it just mentioned this. St. J. Randy on Blue Sky. Is Jared Davidson the most overlooked and underrated Laval Rocket player this season? Yeah, I think so, and I think that's why he's the call-up option for me. Want, should, will. I think it should hit all three of those boxes. He's earned that call-up.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. He seems like a guy who would fit in pretty well with what this team is trying to do right now.
And we had a listener that was like way ahead of the curve on Davidson. So, 2 years ago when we said there was no hope, you stand corrected. There is hope. I hope they do call him up.
Yeah. All right. I think we got time for one more here. Jojo Leprof on Blue Sky. If you could transport one of the guys from the 2000 to the 2015 era Habs to the present team, who would it be and why? I find that the 2015 cutoff is very interesting because it means you cannot select Shea Weber. Because I think a Shea Weber on this team would rule. I think that's a great ad. It does mean you can add PK Subban if you wanted to.
I know, but the thing is, like, I want like Shea Weber, like where he was just before he got here. I want the Shea Weber that the Flyers signed to an offer sheet. Like, that's what I want. I want before all the injuries, before his body was deteriorating. That's the Shea Weber I want. He was not a Montreal Canadian, but I will add PK Subban. Sentimentally, like I would add Saku. Like if you ask me, like in my heart, who I want, it would be Saku. Saku deserves to play with guys like this. Saku deserves to have this kind of enthusiasm and joy and good vibes around him. 100%. But if you ask me who's going to help the most, I think it's PK Subban because I think Marty could work wonders with him. All of the stuff that people talked about him and like all that kind of stuff. Like I think he would have been amazing. Just like imagine having both Lane Hudson and PK Subban on your team.
Marty would have loved coaching PK Subban. I think he would have loved coaching a guy with that kind of skill.
And I think Kent Hughes would have loved him too. I think Kent Hughes would have worked wonders with a PK Subban.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Saku pick as well. I also like the idea of like peak Thomas Plekanec coming back. They need a left-handed center who can win draws. That seems like a great guy to have in that sort of situation.
Or peak Markov.
Yeah, or just bring them all back. We'll just name all the guys that they should have won a cup with and never did.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna end it. We're gonna end our mailbag there, but we have to jump into trivia. And we are introducing a new game this week. A game that you've already played, but we're going to make it a regular occurrence. Let's do the trivia question from yesterday. Of the 4 players the Habs drafted in 1984 who went on to play 1,000 games in the NHL, who played the most for the Montreal Canadiens? Did you have the answer to this one, Laura?
No, but I mean, I was kind of thinking of one, and then like 3 or 4 people answered it, and I was wrong. So
The answer is Shane Corson. Played, I believe, 662 with the Montreal Canadiens. The others were Patrick Watt, 551, Peter Svoboda at 534, and Stefan Richer at 490. First person who got it right, Chad McIntosh on YouTube. We also had Super Rain and Emmanuel again getting another correct trivia question. So thanks, guys, for answering those. This is a fun. Today's is especially fun. I get to use another shout out to Hockey Reference, their stat head. It's for complete dorks like me. So I have a lot of fun just digging into the numbers there. In the 1961-62 season, Jacques Plante set the Habs record for the most shots faced in a single season, 2,160 shots faced. But that total does not hold a candle to the former Habs goalie who holds the first and second place spots for shots faced in a season. Which former Habs goalie faced the most shots in an NHL season and the second most shots in an NHL season in history? So a former Montreal Canadian who did this with another team. Who is that goalie? If you have the answer, send it to us anywhere you know how to do so. YouTube, you can put it right in the comments, and we'll pin whoever gets it right there. Introducing our new game. We did this a few nights ago for Habs' first goal against Utah. I think we're going to try to do this for every game moving forward.
yeah.
So Habs' first goal competition. The rules are simple. If you're replying on YouTube, just put HFG and then whoever they're playing, and then whoever you think is going to score the first goal. Because this weekend there's 2 games, so we need to know both of those. There's no prizes or anything, but we will shout you out on the next episode of the show. So anyway, you guys can send it to us. Email lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, lockedoncanadiens at Blue Sky. Those are probably the 2 best options because we can both monitor those and make sure that you guys get credit for getting the goals right.
Yeah, and even if we forget to mention it, just any time that we drop an episode like before games, like whether it's like before the weekend games or on like a Tuesday or whatever, you could just go ahead and play the game, even if we forget to mention it, because we talked about it a couple of nights ago and then I forgot to mention it last night. So
yeah, no, great call. If we mess up, don't let that be your problem. Just tell us who you think is going to score the first goal.
Yes.
Good luck. It'll be fun. We hope you guys have a good time with it. Make some weird picks. Try to get some right. Alex Carrier will score eventually. Maybe you put his name down there. But that's going to do it for us on this episode and this week of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first list of the day. For your second listen, head over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey wherever you get your podcasts. We did a bunch of plugs on this show, but we'll do them again. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com, Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, Locked On Canadiens on TikTok. We're going to try to keep posting through it. Our Americans, you know what's going on. That's all I'll say. Locked On Canadiens on Instagram. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Actor Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys on Monday.